I don't know if there's a busier man on campus this week than Darian DeVries. The men's portal opened up on Monday. There was a little, I do want to say this. There was a little bit of a misconception about our conversation last week because what I do is I take these long lives and then I'll cut them up into clips and we release them over the week. And I think a lot of people watched our video of assessing Indiana's initial roster and like took it as like we released it on that date when that was like very much like a live conversation last Tuesday. And so, like, we had a couple people in the comments be like, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. Like, Zarno decommitted 2 days ago. And it's like, no,
I know. No, we only got 5 guys as of it is March 20th. I'm going to have to timestamp.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was thinking of like throwing the timestamp on here somewhere, but yeah.
Look at that. It is March 25th. It's 9:05 p.m. Eastern time. So just to preface this by anything we say. 5 guys pretty much locked in Indiana right now, with obviously news can still happen. Miles Rice, Bryson Tucker, Trent Sisley, Cannon Carlisle, and I'm going to throw in Tucker DeVries as the 5 Indiana guys that we have right now. It's like we are Marshall basically. we're just hitting the trail, and we got 10 spots to fill right now. 10. This team could look so different. So much wiggle room. Honestly, like with the core they have, like it's kind of the young guys that I wanted, like Rice and Tucker. We wanted that. Obviously, we wanted Sisley back. Zerno kind of burned a little bit. Kind of wanted those freshmen to come in. And then there's Bryson Tucker, who's going to be a true sophomore next year. As much as, he was unplayable this year, like absolutely unplayable. Don't mind
You're ready to call those guys.
Don't mind that coming back.
You're ready to call those guys roster locks?
I'm not calling them roster locks. I'm just saying if they do end up coming back, don't mind it. Like they're young, talented players. Like DeVries can, put the hammer down a little bit and get them playing defense. They'll be amazing basketball players, all of them. Kyle already is locked in on defense. He just has to figure out his shot just needs to start falling. All of a sudden, he's a all conference level guy. Like period. I don't care what anyone says. So going in with those 5, going into you already have one of those 5 is probably an all conference level player in Tucker DeVries. So a lot to build around, a lot to sell.
I want to make a Tucker DeVries point real quick because I was definitely sitting here thinking to myself, "Whoa, it's definitely a little weird he hasn't committed yet, right?" I think he's waiting on a medical hardship waiver, and I think once that clears, there's no question he's going to Indiana. Like the Hoosiers Connect and
Darren, he has eligibility, which he probably will. He'll be on the roster.
The Darian DeVries Hoosiers Connect interview dropped this morning, and in that interview, DeVries talked about cause he was asked about how he approaches recruiting and like getting kids to leave or getting parents to leave their kids with him. And he's like, well, especially for this year when I'm going to have my son in the locker room with me. So they're expecting him to be there. So I would, if you were like me and you were thinking like, maybe it's a little weird he hasn't committed yet, it's semantics at this point.
Yeah, are we going to assume Goody's in or not? Because honestly, I'm just putting it as a coin flip at this point, whether Goody's in or not. So he's obviously the wild card. So we could just assume there's 9 to 10 spots. Because they're going to keep that spot for Goody. They're going to. He's too good of a shooter. He fits perfectly in what DeVries wants to do.
Yeah, there was a Zach Osterman article today. Shout out Zach Osterman. Huge fan of Zach Osterman. Every time he posts something, I'm going to read it. But he talked about kind of what DeVries' goal for this week was, and he said that he's doing exit interviews with players leaving. So he said he has spoken to or will speak to Trey, Ballo, Leal, and who am I missing? Who else is leaving? Who has no eligibility?
Those are the 3. Those are the rest are walk-ons.
Maybe Goody then.
Goody is the 4th. Goody's the 4th, but he's coming back. Fingers crossed.
And then he's finishing, like he hasn't met with everyone on the current roster yet. That's the goal for this week is when people start funneling back in from spring break, he's going to have those meetings with the current roster. And it was unclear at the time of writing this article. I think came out around 2 or 3 today, but I'm not entirely sure. It was unclear if he had spoken to Goody yet. But we'd like to assume that if he has eligibility. The other thing is the only thing I've seen on like whether or not the ruling is going to go in Goody's favor is just people praying over it. There's no like he's cooked or he's good. It's just like we'll see. Like who knows? So
I've heard 10% likelihood he comes back. I've heard 80% likelihood he comes back. I've heard every single number from 0 to 100. So I'm just putting it as a coin flip. Either he's in or he's not. 10 games his sophomore year. I don't think there was an injury. I think he just played the last 10 games, and Brad Underwood kind of fucked him over by burning his kind of red shirt there, to be honest. He might have a case, he might not. I'm just not sure what's going to happen there. But, I mean, whether it's 9 or 10 spots is going to be a completely different roster next year. One thing I'm not doing is including Dallas James, by the way, but I'm just going to assume they're going to bring him back as a walk-on or something like that. Like, I just can't imagine that he uses a scholarship on Dallas James. I just can't. I really hope Dallas James isn't watching. Would hate for him to find out this news through me live on YouTube. Crazy. But yeah, you wanted me to prepare with like some targets.
Yeah, there's like so the other thing that DeVries is going to have to do this week besides meet with his own team and figure out who he's going to try and bring back. And like obviously Malik Renew is in the portal and he's got interest from a laundry list of schools that includes lots of blue buds and good programs. And Mackenzie Mbako is obviously in the portal. And so he's going to meet with those guys and you hope he can like bring at least one, if not both of those guys back. But in the event that he doesn't, like I said, the portal opened on Monday. There's been a little bit of smoke on potential guys coming to Indiana. Connor Enright is one that we know is already officially taking a visit, I think April 1st or 2nd. So I wanted you to kind of put together a list of transfer portal targets, kind of guys that are one, available, and two, that you feel like would fit in the DeVries system. But there was another name, two other names I wanted to throw at you too. Ryan Conwell, who was the Indiana State guard from 2 years ago. He transferred to Xavier. We're unsure if he's going to follow Sean Miller to Texas. A lot of Indiana fans want him. And then who's the other one? I'm drawing a complete blank right now.
Enright?
No, I already said Enright. There was another guard, I think, yeah. So transfer targets, available or not available. What do you got for me, Goon?
Yeah, Enright. I mean, isn't he like he's like a smaller 6'2" white boy from DePaul, scrappy.
Yeah, I was seeing a lot of people call him Anthony Leal with offense. First of all, I think that's highly disrespectful to Anthony Leal, who was an all defensive level player.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't look as big as Anthony Leal. Anthony Leal's 6'5" and like strong, guys. Like he's not like a small guy. He's not.
But no, people like him. He's scrappy. He was on the Drake team that DeVries coached 2 years ago. He led his team in assists, and he looks to take a bunch of charges. Just a real gritty player. You'd like to think that's scrappy. A bench piece, not a starting guard.
Scrappy, you like to see him getting like 10 minutes a game as a point guard off the bench, in theory. If he even makes the rotation. Because he's like coming from Ivy League, like who's to say he gets tick?
No, DePaul.
DePaul, yeah. It's like worse almost. But anyways, there's one guy specifically that I think's going to be big. Jonathan Powell. He's going to be a sophomore next year. He's a freshman this year, out of West Virginia. 6'6" guard. He's in the portal. I think he follows DeVries personally. The three West Virginia freshmen that now granted their release, I assume they're going to get texts at the very least this week. The very least. I don't see why you would commit to West Virginia and not entertain the idea of going to Indiana. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I think if he calls any of those four guys, or any of those three guys, they'll come through. So we could really like safely assume that then with Goody back, those three freshmen, there's about 6 spots left. Ish. Depending, obviously there might be more turnover and stuff like that. We're not anticipating. Clearly, so then there's Powell. I like Josh Dix from Iowa. Apparently he's really close with Tucker DeVries. He's a really good shooter. Just imagine Dix, Goody, and DeVries in the same lineup. Just picture it. Just, oh my God. With Miles Rice giving him the ball, Doesn't matter who's playing center at that point. It really doesn't. It does not matter who's playing center at that juncture. Doesn't matter. But it really does come down. I'm most intrigued. I know we're gonna get good shooters. We're gonna get good guards. What DeVries does. I'm curious to see what bigs he gets. Is he gonna go? I'm not too familiar with how he plays. I'm looking at all these teams that are still playing. Like Houston, they play two bigs. Is Cooper Flag a big? Cooper Flag's kind of playing the big, so Duke's playing like two bigs with one of those bigs being Cooper Flag. If that, I
don't think you can't comp a team with Cooper Flag to another.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I think Houston is fair to kind of as a model the longest streak of Sweet 16s active right now. They roll with two very athletic bigs and three very scrappy, strong.
You're saying two bigs, and all the listeners just turned off the stream.
Well, the problem is that Renew was our second big. He's not like Juwan Roberts and Javier Francis and Tugler at Houston. He's a lot slower. He's not. They're also 6'8". Like he's bigger than them, but they're stronger and more athletic and just more complete basketball players. Sorry to say it, but looking for guys like that aren't necessarily can go right or left, can be complete players, maybe not as automatic going left as Renew was, because obviously that was just he was basically unguardable going left, but everyone knew he was going left, so it really got him in a pickle sometimes, and it just didn't really fit, especially with a guy like Ballo, because Ballo is also slow. It honestly worked better with Ware, and somehow I don't. Renew at the 4 just doesn't work. Doesn't work. It just doesn't. He doesn't rebound enough. It just doesn't. And it would have been nice to see what DeVries could have done with him, and maybe he could have made him into a rebounder. But it's kind of hard at this point in his career to kind of just wish that upon him, and kind of just wish he becomes that type of player. So I'm just curious to see what bigs he targets, because I think that's going to be something that's very important. A lot of teams that make runs in the tournament have really good bigs. Look at Trey Kaufman-Renn at Purdue. Look at, I don't know, Tennessee. They got who's their guy? I mean, they got Florida. Florida has bigs for days. They got they play two at a time. They go Condon. They go. I watched so much basketball this weekend. Condon. They go Hogg. I love Hogg. Hogg and Condon have really solid games. And then they have Hart and Glogan or whatever his name, and the other white boy, and there's one other guy. They rotate all these guys in. They're all just so solid, so skilled. I want to call out Hogg and Condon specifically because they're 6'10", very tall, not the craziest athletes, but they're nimble. They can dribble. They have complete games. They can shoot in the outside. Renew couldn't really do that. And I look at Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin got knocked out by BYU. But BYU had, tall bigs that can shoot. Wisconsin had tall bigs that can shoot. It's a common theme where, Houston's guys can't necessarily shoot, but they're doing a role, right? So I'm just curious to see what direction he goes and the types of bigs he targets and how he constructs it, because we have zero bigs on the roster right now. So it's going to be completely new in terms of what we're doing at those positions. So it's kind of a good thing for him, because in terms of just roster construction, he's going to have full control. He's not necessarily stuck with a personnel that he doesn't want to play with. So I'm just curious to see what he does year one. I think with DeVries on the team period, they should have a tournament level roster at the very least. I mean, that's just my expectation going into it. Just having a guy like that can make shots, get Goody back. This team should be making the tournament in theory next year. I don't want to throw expectations on them with 5 guys in the program, four guys in the program right now, and here I am. Well,
it's hard to even.
I was blaspheming all these fans, and here I am throwing expectations on the team with less than a starting 5 on the roster right now. I'm just curious.
And it's still we need to get. I think we need to get through the end of the week before we start assuming who's on the roster and who's not on the roster. But I think it's fair to have expectations. I don't think Darian DeVries takes the Indiana job if he doesn't think they can win this year, given it's literally Tucker's last year of college basketball. You only get season-ending surgery the time where they did it if you're trying to preserve your eligibility to play it next year. So if you're gonna go
I
under
heard
the
he didn't
knife,
have surgery. I heard it was just they looked at his shoulder. He had an operation and he faked the injury to stay one more year in Indiana. That's what I heard. I heard there was no surgery at all. That's what I heard.
I'm gonna ignore that. And I'm just saying, I think it's fair to have those types of expectations when you look at, like, if they don't leave West Virginia, they were a borderline tournament team this year and they didn't have DeVries for the last month. Like that was absolutely an NCAA tournament team next year, and he left it to come to Indiana.
Which is
I
why I
don't think
want him.
he,
Yeah, I want him
I
to
don't
target
think
a lot
you
of those West Virginia guys. That'd be
well,
very
yeah, it's
nice.
like I don't think you burn your son's last year of eligibility to take a better opportunity. I think you just like you and I don't know. Maybe he does. I don't know. But I think it's more than fair to have positive expectations for what Indiana basketball could be in 5-6 months without going over the top to the point where you upset yourself with things that don't happen.
There's a few West Virginia guys that aren't. I mean, McLean and Hawthorne are like big types. Like McLean is like a stretch 4, and Hawthorne is probably like 4-5. He might be like a Houston big type 6'8". Those are the 2 freshman bigs that could be coming in. And then there's Hansberry, who's not in the portal. He's a junior, but he was getting a majority of the attention at the center spot for West Virginia last year. Tamper maybe with I don't know. As much continuity as we can get from the West Virginia team, the more happy I'll be, and the less concerned I'll be going into next year. Obviously, I'm not going to like write them off if it's a hodgepodge of different transfers from different schools, but it would be nice to get a bunch of West Virginia guys. I just think that bode well for instilling culture, getting people on board with DeVries, things like that.
I agree. I wanted to end the basketball conversation, kind of end the show with this. I kind of got on you and Coach Pundit last week in defense of Ben McCollum when you guys started to give him shit about being like the Archie-esque, like blah, blah, blah. And then the reason being for both of you guys saying that by the next time we speak, he's going to be the head coach of Iowa. So we're starting the rivalry early. And here we are, Ben McCollum, head coach of Iowa. There was one utterly ridiculous story that was attempted to be peddled that was Ben McCollum was decided he couldn't take the Indiana job because Pam Whitten was too involved, which is the most nothing BS, like
that
fabricated, made up. Like, I don't know a thing about Indiana
they're trying to
athletics.
call him
Let me just
misogynistic. Is that all they're trying to do?
no. It was like a pro Iowa report being like they think that he thought the president would be too overbearing. It's like if you've paid any attention to Indiana athletics over the last,
they wanted to make it look like they got the guy and we
no,
missed out
100%.
on that. That's all they're trying to do. And
100%.
I think it's fun because I feel like Indiana and Iowa are already like somewhat of a basketball rivalry in some capacity. At least like in terms of my experience, like every time we play Iowa, it's a very highly competitive, explosive, very like at each other's throats type game. Like they knocked us out in the Big Ten semifinal, like St. Patty's Day a couple of years ago, and I was mad. Fucking Jordan Bohannon. I'm like going full as Bobby Knight right now. God. But yeah, no. What did I say in the group chat when they announced the Ben McCollum news officially? What did I say? Do you remember what I said in the group chat? I said DeVries is going to stuff him in a locker. That's what I said. So that's what I'm going to say about the Ben McCollum news being official. Can't wait to see DeVries just dominate him year in and year out. He plays a very interesting, mathematically sound style of basketball, but maybe not sustainable year in and year out. At least maybe in terms of winning the Big Ten, is it going to get the job done? I'm not sure. Is it going to get them in the tournament? Probably. Is it going to make them any more relevant than they were under Fran McCaffrey? Probably not.
No.
Just less scoring, more defense. It's like the same old, same old. Bennett Sturts will be a problem next year, but once he leaves, like, who's to say Ben McCollum has any idea how to evaluate talent at the Big Ten level? Who's to say? He brought all of his D2 guys with him to Drake. Bennett Sturts turned out to be a very high-level D1 player. Lucky him. And he's bringing him to Iowa. Who's to say he knows how to evaluate talent after year one when Bennett Sturts leaves? So that was always the biggest concern with McCollum. DeVries has proven it. He's he's a more sustainable option to go with. And just can't wait to see that matchup.
Well, it's funny the fit too, right? Because if you look at how DeVries, if you're just looking at McCollum and DeVries, like DeVries very much fits Bloomington as opposed to McCollum, who much more fits into like what I was looking for. Like it feels like it's
Iowa
a
was looking for the
mismatch
opposite of Fran McCaffrey, and that's Ben
well,
McCollum.
no, but I'm talking about in terms of like, I guess in terms of personalities, like how much you want to deal with the circus. It's like DeVries was like, I want to come to Bloomington. Like, let's do this. I'm excited to be here. And it felt like Ben McCollum was always hesitant about how much spotlight he wanted. Well, he ended up in Iowa. So
perfect.
It's like, if you're, but on the flip side, if you're Iowa and you're going to take like a Billy Bean-esque Moneyball approach to building out your roster because you're paying wrestlers $5 million, so you're not going to pay the basketball team. Who's the better guy for you to bet on? It's like maybe the dude who just stares at basketball all day.
Probably so it's definitely the guy who wants to play 50 possessions a game. That guy that increases your odds in any matchup. So
I think and just if you look at Drayton, there's the guy who took the Minnesota job was also a Drake coach. So it's like huge for Drake and its ability to produce Big Ten coaches. But I'm very excited to see what this, because we now have two measuring sticks of coaches taking new jobs in the Big Ten. Okay, cool. What does our program look like in 6 months compared to their program? What does our program look like in 18 months compared to their program? And then you can start having those conversations of like, did Indiana make the right hire? Because you can make up any type of report you want, but it's not a mistake that Indiana made their move for DeVries and then the rest of the market figured itself out. Like they were the A player here. They made the first choice.
Couldn't have said it better myself. They did make the first choice, first pick of the draft. Darian DeVries. I heard it's Darren DeVries, not Darian.
It's Darren.
Darren. Okay. That's going to take some getting used to because it's not spelled like that at all. So, I mean, people are just going to get that wrong forever. Like people,
not if you win.
Even if he wins, you'll be surprised how dumb people are. You'll be surprised. But yeah, we got the first pick. The more I think about Darian DeVries, the better I feel about it. Honestly, I've kind of plateaued about it where I'm kind of just bought in. Right? I'm just waiting to see what the details look like. Not really looking too into transfer portal rankings. Hard to convince me. Gabe Cupps is number 61. Just dude averaged less than 3 points a game. Like there's just no way he's top 100. There's just no
Raphael Davis
love
tweeted
the kid,
something.
But there's just no way.
He tweeted something about Josh Tanja's portal rankings last year. I think he was like in 3-star, like 89 overall, like rated player, and he was an All-American this year. So
who cares? Yeah, who cares?
Doesn't matter.
None of it matters. So just excited more so just to see the details specifically. Very similar to the D-line. What are they going to do with the bigs? What's that going to look like? Are we going to go for 7-footers? Or are we going to go for 6'9" athletic guys? Can stretch it out like little. Oh man, if we get little Donnie McClain to come to Indiana, that's going to be my favorite player. Well, he might have to supplant Trey Galloway day one. As my favorite.
Day one, he says.
Keezer knows I'm just a big Don McClain fan. All-time leading scorer.
Dude, the guy loves Don McClain. It's crazy.
All-time leading scorer at UCLA. His son is a West Virginia commit, asked for out, so he's going to be available. Get him in the cream and crimson. That's honestly my number one. Just a little biased, obviously, but that's like bring that kid in. I promise you, in terms of evaluation, like sometimes you just gotta simplify it and be like, hey, his dad played at a very high level at the college level. Genes tend to translate. The kid's probably going to can contribute at the Big Ten level. It's really as simple as that. He's already a 4-star. He's got all the accolades anyways. It's not like he needs me to hype him up. 6'9", stretch 4. it's the guy that Indiana fans want too. Like it's
It's exactly what we need.
Yeah, the stretch
a tall guy who can shoot.
Yeah, exactly. We need.
Really get the people going.
Yeah, you remember getting blown out by Wisconsin, Nolan Winter and Steven Crowell just came out and knocked down 6 threes in the first 5 minutes. Like, and you're just sitting there like, oh, when's the last time Indiana had anything close to that? what they have going on? Like, man. So yeah, to get someone who's somewhat like that, like he's not 7 foot like Crowell and Winter, but he's 6'9", stretch 4, can contribute. DeVries already had his stamp of approval. Get him over to Bloomington. I want all 3 of those West Virginia freshmen, honestly. Like bad. I think that's probably going to be priority maybe not number 1 for DeVries, but for me, that's like kind of what I want to see is him being able to get all 3 of those guys. If he's not, I'm going to be a little less excited than I was. Not in a drastic sense, but just like, oh, he wasn't able to get the 3 guys he was able to commit before. It's a little weird, but that's just a thought. That's the thought I will have. Like,
no, I'm with you. I get it.
Nothing crazy, but it's just kind of want to know what would be the reason for them not to follow him to Indiana.